Welcome, everyone. Episode 5 of the Euroball Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Bernucca. We are back with a returning guest from our playoff previews, Savas Birdal, who has also started a podcast of his own. I'll let him talk about that a little bit later. But really today, two main things we're talking about. One real main thing, I want to do a little bit of Monaco Fenerbahce cleanup. That was a great playoff series. I don't want to miss out on that and act like, that game 5 and even game 4 wasn't worth talking about. It was. But then we're really going to try to get a deep dive onto Panathinaikos and Fenerbahce coming up in the Final Four, what we can expect to see from each team, what that matchup is going to look like. But before we get started, Savas, how are you? How does it feel to be back in the Final Four?
Oh yeah, I feel great. It's been so long since we were in the Final Four. It's been 5 years, but if you ask me, it felt like 10, to be honest. So much change in those 5 years. I think four coaches, Kokoshkov, Djordjevic, Tudis, and now Shara. So
Oh my
four
God, I forgot
coaches
about
in,
Djordjevic.
yeah, four coaches in 5 years,
Four
and
coaches. How
lots
many
of,
point guards, man? You had
I don't
Nando.
know, probably twice as many,
Yeah.
probably. Like we had Brown at some point,
Yes.
Lorenzo Brown. We had DeColo, uh, who else? Pierre Henry. I mean,
Right.
lots of names, really.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a while. Well, hey, look, like I said, before we get into this semifinal, which I think is going to be fantastic, your series with Monaco was great. I think you had Fener in 4 from our podcast. I had Monaco in 5. I for a moment there felt really good about Monaco in 5 until Elio Kobo waved off Mike James on the final possession. Which like I a lot of credit for that. That's a really big balls move, like a really big guts move to say, like, yeah, hey man, EuroLeague MVP, I'm gonna take this shot, not you. To his credit, he had made a few big shots before that, but I mean, I really like you have to find Mike James there. But it was a really interesting series to me. There was some stuff afterwards about Monaco's physicality, which I'll ask you on that in a little bit. I thought that was a little bit overblown. Monaco's played like that for a while. It's kind of what they have to do since they don't have a lot of offense after James and Manajunas. It didn't seem like anything extra to me. Monaco's big win in Game 4 was super impressive. I really was concerned about their ability to win a game in Istanbul on the road. Fener is so strong at home, and Monaco's role players just have not been what they needed to be this year. And like to win a game on the road, you need role players to step up. I did not see an environment where that was going to happen, but they made it work. There was then kind of like the fan and Blossom Game interaction after that game, which I also thought was kind of overblown. I don't know why Blossom Game went over there and motioned something. Fans should not throw stuff. Players should not be antagonistic to fans. It's like, can you just go home and be happy that you just won a road game and that you're going back home for Game 5? But look, it was a great series. Nick Calathes, yours and mine, least favorite EuroLeague point guard, hits 2 big threes, really to kind of win the game. So I mean, what were you thinking after that series ended? Kobo waves off James, Calathes hits the big shot. You get that big Game 5 win. Kind of, what did you see transpire throughout the series? Did you learn anything new about Fener from the series itself?
I wouldn't say we learned anything new about either team, to be honest. I think it was what we expected. I personally expected a very tough series, physical, uh, defenses take the stage kind of series with lower scoring than we saw in the regular season. Like Fener at some point were raining down trees in the regular season, but it wasn't going to happen in the playoffs, especially against a team like Monaco. And it wasn't anything different than I think what we talked about in the preview podcast as well. So it wasn't necessarily something groundbreaking we haven't seen before, but it was the overall excitement of the series and some very big moments from either side, player wise, I think, and some very interesting talking points, including Mike James not being himself throughout the series. So it was a very interesting series, and I honestly I enjoyed it. I'm not sure if I would say I enjoyed it if Fana lost, but yeah, I definitely enjoyed it, and it was especially the last game. I mean, by the end of it, I don't think I even remember the last 2.5 seconds after that jump ball. I probably blanked out like on the floor. I was sitting on the floor. I remember that. So I don't remember. I had to go back and watch that 2.5 seconds again to see if we won the jump ball or not. And I realized we actually didn't win the jump ball. Papayannis lost it, but it somehow ended in Wilbekin's hands.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a. I mean, I think offense-wise was a bit underwhelming because both teams' best players throughout the regular season, Mike James and I would say on Fener's end, it is probably Nigel Hayes. So they had a very underwhelming series, and Hayes was shooting terribly as just like Mike James. So we didn't see that star power in action in this series, but still lots of role players came to play on Monaco and on Fener as well. Fener had some huge contributions from Biberovic, Papayannis. Who else I'm missing? I don't know if Gudic counts as a role player, but he was also huge in this series. And on Monaco, I think Diallo had a really good couple games. Uh, Motiejunas had a good series overall, although you can debate that if him being on the floor is actually a plus for Monaco or plus for Fener because of his defensive flaws. But yeah, interesting series overall, and I'm just glad that I survived the series. I mean, it was painful towards the end, especially after game four.
Yeah. Yeah. The Monahunas thing is a good point. He had a great season, from start to finish for Monaco, but they're really dependent on him as per secondary offense. Like when James doesn't have it, or when teams are kind of blitzing and forcing the ball out of James' hands in the pick and roll, they really need Monahunas out there to either attack switches or kind of play in the short roll or space the floor and even knock down some threes, because their wing guys are just not consistent shooters. Diallo, Blossom Game. And like I think that's a concern they have heading into the offseason, is just how dependent they are on a guy like him to kind of step up and be their number two in big moments. And, Jordan Lloyd got a little bit better throughout that series, but he was never, he just hasn't been the same guy since the back stuff. Strazel was kind of non-impact, even though he ended the regular season strong for them. He was, pretty minimal in the series. I can't remember if he was hurt or something. Maybe I missed that, but I didn't see him out there a lot. And yeah, on the Fener side of things, Marko Guduric is a role player. I don't think he would ever agree that he's a role player. And he would, quabble with that claim at any point in his career. But he is in this environment. But at the same time, he's your second ball handler at times. He's one of your best. He may be the best on your team at actually breaking someone down from the perimeter and getting into the paint. Now, is he making the best decisions out of that all the time? That's a different discussion. But he's one of the better Fenerbahce players to kind of knife into the defense and make them collapse and be more of a threat than just catch and shoot. He offers a little more diversity in his offensive game. The other thing that came out after that series is that Monaco was looking at Calathes in the summer. Look, I don't know what that is. I know Fener wanted to push Calathes out last summer, and he's become very important now. He's clearly still a good player. I think there are teams he could offer. He's been a backcourt partner to Mike James before. Those teams never made the Final Four. I think Monaco would really kind of be missing something with that. And the weakness that they've had all season is that you need, they have the athleticism and physicality you need around a guy like James, because when you're building a team around an undersized guard, that's like something you're giving up right away, and you need to fill in with that. Diallo, Blossom Game, Hall, John Brown, they bring that to the table. We also need shooting, which they didn't have enough of. They didn't have enough guys who, like, even when Diallo and Blossom Game are making their shots, you are still in this world of them taking an open three is like better than a Mike James contested three. And they need guys who tip that scale a little bit and can open the floor back up for him. And credit to Calathes, he hit those two big threes down the stretch, but like, he's not going to change that. He's going to be in more of the same boat. You're pretty okay with Calathes shooting a three over a Mike James step back or isolation. Those are some interesting things I pulled out of that series. To me, it's going to be fun to see where Monaco goes from there. And I think, there were some things from that Fener series and from when they played Panathinaikos this season. It's nothing new. It's more of the same weaknesses that we're going to get into in a second. Those are kind of my closing thoughts as Monaco's season wrapped up and Fenerbahce's continued.
Just a quick point on Calates possibly going to Monaco. I agree with you in the sense that Monaco definitely needs shooting. But I actually think, for me, he could actually work there, I think. Because the main reason being, I think they need shooting from the forward positions, not exactly the guard position, because they have enough shooting guards. Not shooting guards, but shooting guards who can play both positions. That's what I mean. So, and we know that he can work with Mike James, and they definitely need more ball movement.
Yeah.
In offense. That offense can get stagnant quite quickly when they put the ball in Okobo's hands or James' hands or Lloyd's hands. So to run some traditional pick and roll action, I think they can definitely use a guy like Calates, but they definitely also need some shooters. But I would say they need those shooters in the 3 and 4 positions, because the guys they have there, mainly John Brown, who's a non-shooter.
Yeah.
Except it's a wide open mid-range jumper. Or Diallo, who's very streaky, Blossom game the same. So you need to have at least one guy who's a knockdown shooter there, I think.
Yeah.
They need their own version of like a Sestina, or doesn't have to be someone that cheap because they can afford it.
Yeah.
Maybe in the Alec Peters mold.
Yeah.
But they definitely need someone in that mold on the floor at times, because it is what allowed Fener to defend them so well.
Yeah.
They basically doubled all the ball handlers. Mike James was seeing 2 people on him 90% of the time on the floor. So he had to get rid of the ball. And I thought he did a good job of it, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. They could try to go get Korkmaz. They could try to go get Korkmaz this summer.
Monaco.
Yeah.
I'm not sure actually what Korkmaz is thinking, because he had the chance to come back to Turkey in the middle of the season when he got waived by the Sixers.
Yeah.
But he did not, so we'll see what happens with him this summer. But yeah, he can be a nice piece on a EuroLeague roster for sure.
Yeah, he would be great, man. I don't want to spend too much time talking about Furkan Korkmaz, but pretty much what I heard happen is, I mean, he got waived. The Sixers traded him in the Buddy Hield trade, and then the Pacers waived him. And then, I mean, like the Euro teams called for him, and like he wants like NBA money, and they're like, hey, like, especially in season, they're like, no way. I don't know, maybe he comes down in the summer, maybe teams ramp up their offer to him, but like what I heard, there's a pretty large gap between like what he is expecting and like what is actually available for him.
Yeah, he views himself as an NBA guy who's coming back to Europe, and European teams view him as this guy who hasn't played in 4 years and had some very serious injuries. So
exactly,
there's that gap there for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on. Monaco season is over. We can also be done talking about them. All due respect to Mike James and the group over there. Let's get into Fenerbahce Panathinaikos. This is going to be a great matchup. Ergin Ataman has a team back in the final, has Panathinaikos back in the Final Four, his first year on the job. Impressive turnaround. This team has finished the season really strong. I'm going to map out, from my side of things, some moves I think Panathinaikos should make that could be beneficial to them in this matchup. You can also kind of respond to those and throw some other things back that, you think Jasikevicius might dig into as well. My first thing on the Panathinaikos side of things is, and we saw this in the last time they faced in the regular season, I think Dinos Mitoglu's minutes are going to get cut. I think Ataman's going to go small pretty quick because Dinos cannot hang with some of the people you guys play at the 4. Nigel Hayes-Davis in particular. Even Nua gave him some problems. And it's just like he's had success with those small lineups later in the season, at times going Grant Nuns-Lucas, 3 guards, and then Grigonis or Hernan Gomez at the 4. I think that's going to be almost a pretty straightforward move. Even Kalitzakis, by the way, who's like finished the season really strong and was big in that Maccabi series, I think we might see some of him at the 4. That's my first guess for Panathinaikos. They go small. It lets them really spread out for those Kendrick Nunn pick and rolls, those Kostas Lucas pick and rolls. And we know Fenerbahce's bigs aren't the best at defending those scenarios. You know, Papagiannis, Sertaj Stanley, you put them into drop coverage, you get the ball zipping around, they may not recover as well. That's kind of my, first move on the chessboard, the first pawn I'm putting out there. What do you think Fener does about that? Do you think they're even concerned about it at all? Do you think they're okay with playing small basketball and they maybe have a quick counter?
I think Fener will be forced to go small as well because their biggest problem in this matchup will be containing Kendrick Nunn. And the best way to do that is probably going small. Like of course, you're going to give up some things, and you'll probably give up some points to Lazor in the paint. But as we saw in the Maccabi series, you can also foul him and make him go to the line and earn it there. And that could be a strategy in the Final Four as well. Thinking about previous Final Fours where lots of teams fouled the shit out of bigs, making them go to the line. The main one being Vesely in 2016, where we suffered a lot from it. I think he shot like 1 out of 10.
Yep.
So that can be a strategy, making Lazor go to the line. And what actually worries me is Panathinaikos, when they have both Nunn and Sloukas on the floor. When you think about Monaco, there's just that one guy there, Mike James. I mean, I don't want to disrespect Lloyd and Okobo, but they're not as they're not as
Kostas Sloukas. They're not Kostas Sloukas or Kendrick Nunn. Yeah.
Yeah, and the type of danger they provide is quite different.
Yeah.
Like, with Okobo or Lloyd, you know that they're gonna wait and try to get a favorable matchup for them and just dribble out the clock and basically not let the ball move. And that's definitely not Sloukas' game. With Sloukas, if you actually implement the same strategy you implemented on Mike James, if Nunn gets rid of the ball, then Sloukas with a 4-on-3 in front of him is a very different proposition to Okobo or Lloyd. So I think that's going to change the way Fener will defend Kendrick Nunn in this game. So I'm curious to see how it's going to be, because towards the end of the series, I think Papagiannis defensively, for the first time in his Fener career, probably found himself a bit. He did an all right job, not anything incredible, but he was all right, and he was actually fine to be on the floor. He wasn't a huge minus when he was on the floor towards the end of the series, I think, in Game 4 and Game 5. So, and especially interesting since it's going to be against Panathinaikos.
Yeah.
I'm really curious to see who Sharas is going to go with, like who's going to get the most minutes at the center position.
Yeah.
I think it's either going to be Papagiannis, or it's going to be Motley to expose Lazor and attack him, make him work on the defensive end so that he has a bit less stamina to go for it on the offense.
Yeah.
Because he can also go into foul trouble as easy as maybe not as easy as Motley can, but there's also a danger there that Lazor can go into foul trouble. So yeah, I'm the thing I'm most intrigued about for Fener is the center rotation, definitely.
Yeah. It's I also think we're definitely going to see some pick and pop, because I think Pau is, especially in Calatha's pick and rolls, is they're going to go under and go into some drop and just kind of protect the pain and kind of invite Calatha's towards them, and live with that result. And in response, you can have Sonley and Papagiannis pop out and see if they're having a good game from beyond the arc and get some points that way. On the point of Nunn, do you want to blitz pick and rolls and get the ball out of his hands? Do you want to send 2 defenders on the ball and force him to give it up? And as you said, Kostas Sloukas is probably getting the ball next in an advantageous position. Or you guys tried drop against him in round 23, and he was on fire, in the mid range. He was just making anything he wanted. He was getting to his spots. He's a killer in that situation. He's at this point though, where it's really, a lot of defenses are, as we know, built to make teams take those, 12 to 16 footers. He makes so many of them that you kind of have to think twice about that. So are you blitzing? What do you think is the pick and roll defense you go with when he kind of gets into that set?
I would say mix it up, especially at the start of the game. Mix it up and see what works because, like you said, drop coverage didn't work at all in the game at Oaxaca, and he got to his spots very easily. And from the mid range, he's a killer. That's certain. So if you give him those shots, he's gonna make them. What could be the key is keeping him outside the 3-point range because he made some really good shots in the Maccabi series, especially in the last 2 or 3 games. But I don't think he's as dangerous as he is inside the arc from outside the arc. So if you can keep him out there, give him the three, maybe you can live with it. But if he goes crazy, then there's not much you can do. And
Yeah.
if he goes crazy, I'd rather be it just none goes crazy and not the others. So make sure that you're just staying home with everyone else. And it's just none trying to do the damage by himself.
Yeah.
Because we saw that in the Maccabi series, Pau can go into a stagnant offense, and sometimes they just look at Slukas and Nunn a lot, especially the others.
Yeah.
Right now on this team, they don't have any other ball handlers, I think,
Yep.
since Ataman basically gave up on Vildoza. And Grant he's a good player, but he's more effective defensively than he's on offense, and he's not really trusted with the ball in this offense.
Yeah.
So if you can contain those two guys, then you have a good shot at beating Panathinaikos, but that's of course easier said than done.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right to mix up a whole bunch of different looks, him and Slukas when they're both in a pick and roll. And I think what you could do is maybe not a lot of blitzing or hedging early, but late in the game, particularly if you've gotten in that situation where Nunn and Slukas are taking the bulk of the shots and scoring the bulk of the points, you could start blitzing then. And because now what happens is if Panathinaikos moves the ball around, like, Grigonis, Grant, Hernan Gomez, Vildoza, Kaladzakis, whoever's out there to kind of knock down that shot off of ball movement. Well, they're a good player. If the bulk of the offenses come from Nunn and Slukas, they're probably pretty cold. You're probably in the situation where now, like with 6 minutes ago in the fourth quarter of the biggest game of some of these guys' careers, they're being called to task on do or die shots pretty regularly. I think you could do some of that, mix it up throughout the game, and then as you get later on, really try to chase the ball out of their hands and see if someone can step up for them. I think some other things that can happen here. I'm pulling up some of my notes. In that game at Oaxaca, like Fener got off to a really strong start, and then Panathinaikos kind of ramped up their physicality, kind of in all areas of the game. And I think something I feel like I've noticed from Fener this year is like their guards just kind of get pushed out of the paint. Like they'll drive, and as the game gets more physical inside of there, they don't want to be as engaged with that. If you kind of hit them with this swarming defense, they're kind of like they'll shy away from the paint. Like Wilbekin will start taking more runners and kind of shy away from contact. Calathe is like, we know his deal. Sometimes he looks to score, not all that much. But Guduric is like the main guy who, as things get more physical in there, if he's not getting calls, he kind of shies away from it and goes to lean on his jump shot. And to me, like, I mean, Panathinaikos is, I'm telling them, like, bring the physicality, like, hit those guys, like, put the refs to the test from the start of the game, and let's see what's happening. But like, Fener has to meet that. Like, your guards need to be kind of ready to step into that and go in there, like, and either you're getting foul calls or you're not, but like, you have to fight it either way. What is your like response to that? Am I off? Do you think that's an unfair assessment of kind of your perimeter play this year? Do you see something else from them in those situations?
I think they passed a really good test against Monaco in that sense because it was a very physical series and it was probably more physical than what Panathinaikos had to play against in Maccabi. So we have seen all these problems all season, and it's one of the main problems that Fener doesn't have any verticality in offense. So the guards cannot get in the paint quite easily. And the only guy who can put pressure on the rim on the roster is, I think, Jonathan Motley. And you don't know what he's going to be on a given night. He's a double-edged sword. So I am curious to see what kind of Motley we're going to see on that night, or what kind of Wilbekin we're going to see on that night. And yeah, the guards, they definitely shy away from physicality, and they have some troubles getting into the paint. And when they get into the paint, they also have some troubles finishing in the paint. It's been one of the main problems, and I believe it's a problem they're looking at and they'll be addressing in the summer. Hopefully, it's not easy to find those guys in the EuroLeague market in the summer, but they'll try. And it's one of the glaring weaknesses of this team, and that's what Monaco tried to exploit throughout the series. They were really physical, and it worked. We saw it work, especially in Game 4. They were incredibly physical, and Fenerbahce just shied away from the physicality, and they couldn't get to their spots. And that means for a team that lives and dies by the tree, that means you can't get those shots off. Like sometimes not in time, sometimes not in your preferred spots, and it's always off the dribble, very heavily contested threes. So it was tough for Fener at times during the playoffs, and I don't think Panathinaikos can be as physical as Monaco though. That's what gives me some reassurances, because their guards, especially if you want to have Slukas out there, that means you already start one man down on defense. So he can put some pressure on the ball, but he can't exactly be physical on a player. Like he's gonna be trying to disturb a player like Wilbekin or Dorsey. But if you have that first step advantage on a guy like Slukas, you'll always be playing downhill basically. And for Nan as well, I think he's shown some flashes of what he can do on defense against Maccabi, but he has a heavy load on offense, and that usually means that you're not engaged 100% defensively. Of course, it's going to be it's going to be very different in a Final Four game where it's a do or die situation, and if you lose, you're just out. And it's probably the biggest game of everyone's career so far on the team.
Yeah.
Maybe not Slukas's, or maybe not Nan's, because he had some playoffs games on his resume in the NBA.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you understand what I mean. So
Yeah.
They'll give more effort, but that also applies for everyone.
Yep.
So yeah, I think that's going to be out there.
Yeah.
I'm waiting to see if Panathinaikos can exploit it, because I mean, everyone knows it, and everyone tries to use that against Fener, but it worked out pretty well so far. So there's something working there. Let's say that. Yeah, but yeah, if they can limit Fener to just behind the arc, then it's not going to be the offense Sharas wants, and that probably is going to mean that most of those threes are not falling as well.
Yep.
If you're shooting just threes, it's higher likelihood that you're not shooting well and you're not getting into good positions to shoot the threes.
Yeah. What is your, when they're going to play off Calathes? Monaco did it. Everyone does it. Panathinaikos is going to try too. I mean, like that, they may put Slukas on Calathes at times and have him sag off of him. What do you want to see in response to that? With the exception of, yes, like Nick, shoot open threes when you're left open. Like, what else are we going to do? Take the shot, and we can live and die with some of that. What else do you want to see from response in Fenerbahce when Panathinaikos goes to that tactic? Because they're going to try it at some point. There's no doubt.
There are two scenarios in my mind. One, Calathes just keeps shooting, and keeps making. That's the only way for Fener to win the game. It wasn't working quite well in the Monaco Game 5. But the key was, I believe, like just give him the ball in his preferred spots, like the last two. One was in the corner. The other one, the last one, was a set shot wide open. I think he can make those shots. Where he struggles the most is just off the dribble at the top of the key. And even the slightest of contest there, it just messes up his shot, because his release is just, not a functional one, to say the least. So
This is one of the
yeah,
slowest releases I've ever seen. Yeah.
yeah, and it's quite weird as well. Like, it doesn't jump
Yeah.
and it's really slow, and yeah, it feels like his whole life is just flashing in front of his eyes when he's shooting.
Yeah, that's pretty
Actually, his and
accurate.
mine, his and mine as well. Actually,
Yeah, I feel like it. Yeah, I feel like it often his whole life and yeah, his whole life and yours. It usually is flashing in front of his eyes whenever he has to shoot a three. That's kind of the situation he ends up in quite a lot. Yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
but because Fener have to keep Karatis on the floor. Without
yeah,
him, this offense just does not work. Yeah,
Marco Guduric becomes your point guard. I mean, Guduric and Scotty will become
yeah.
point guards.
I mean, Guduric can become the point guard, but I still rather have Karatis on in those moments on the floor.
Yeah,
Guduric.
yeah,
I definitely don't want to see any lineup with Guduric at the point guard, Wilbekin as the two man, and just someone else as a three.
yeah,
That just doesn't work, especially at this level. Like in the regular season, at times it was fine, but
yeah,
at this level where you just cannot afford losing even a single second of the game time,
yeah,
you just cannot go with those guys without Galatis on the floor.
yeah,
When Galatis is not on the floor, it's a problem for Fener. Even initiating the offense,
yeah,
just bringing the ball up the floor, even that becomes a problem.
yeah,
And that was one of the key points when Sharas got to Istanbul, because prior to Sharas coming, I think Itudis was playing Karatis around 15 minutes a game, and that offense was ugly. Yeah, on
it was awful.
paper, it looks like Wilbekin and Dorsey are like these dynamic combo guards who can score, who can do a bunch of stuff, but it just does not translate. Especially the opposing defenses has an ounce of basketball IQ, then they know how to kill those guys,
Yeah,
and they're
yeah,
just forced to taking tough shot after tough shot.
yeah. Look, you've heard me talk about Tyler Dorsey before. Like that guy, like he cannot initiate offense. I mean, he does not have the handle for it. He does not have like the creation game. He's like zero threat in that situation. He is a catch and shoot or like attacking a closeout type of player. Like that's Tyler Dorsey's role in offense. He has like a little bit of like a 1-2 dribble game he can go to in a pinch if the shot clock's winding down and the ball ends up in his hands. Like you do not want him kind of running the show or anywhere close to it. Wilbekin has, to me, really turned into a guy similar to Isaiah Canaan, where, like, yes, he can put the ball on the floor, he has handle, he can use it to create his own shot. If you misinterpret that to like, oh, Scotty can go run pick and roll, like he's got a strong handle, it's not his game. He's not a creator. He's not a guy who's built to like get his teammates involved. He wants to knock down those catch and shoot threes and kind of build out his offensive profile for your game after that. You know, be able to up fake, set himself up, take a guy off the dribble and do a step back. That's kind of how Scotty's game wants to operate. I do want to raise it at the game at Oka. Yamadar came in the third quarter and actually had a pretty good stretch. Calathes had to rest. Madar came in and it was just like a fresh set of legs. I don't know if it was maybe like Panathinaikos just didn't take him seriously and that let him get off to a strong start. But it gave them a guy who is more open to the physical perimeter battle, who is more comfortable in that environment, who's happy to do it. A more natural point guard who's a little bit better in the pick and roll and will attack the paint. Like throwing Yamadar out there in this game is probably a little crazy. It's just digging that deep into your bench is probably a sign of larger issues in the game overall. But the Stars went to it, and when Powell was running away with it in the third quarter, and like he kind of helped them get back in that game. I don't know how you feel about Madar's season overall, like, or what your response would be if he is thrown out there at some point in the semifinal. But it was something that worked the last time they played.
If it didn't happen in the playoffs, I don't think we'll see that happen in the Final Four in a single game format.
Yeah,
That's my view on it. On his season, I think he had some flashes, like the game against Real Madrid where he scored the game-winning basket. And Itudis probably was a better coach for him than Sharas, and Sharas doesn't have that kind of belief in him. And it just shows he's only right now, I think he's only playing in the Turkish league.
Yeah.
He just played heavy minutes in the last win against Bursa in the league. It was yesterday, I believe,
Gotcha.
on Saturday. So I don't think we're gonna see him in the Final Four, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, he was always in the game day roster in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
He'll be there just in case if something happens to someone.
Yep.
I say, but I mean, if he's playing, then probably down 15.
Yeah.
That's my guess.
You're probably right. The other thing I think I want to see Fener do, they did some of this early in the game against Panathinaikos that helped them build a lead. If Panathinaikos goes with the approach of switching, which they do sometimes, especially like more stuff on the perimeter when Lasort isn't involved. Lasort they like to put into drop a little bit more. But if there's, if Nigel Hayes-Davis comes and sets a screen, they would try to switch. Fener needs to attack those mismatches in the post. Like even if it's Jerian Grant, who's a pretty solid defender, like Nigel Hayes-Davis is a player capable of exploiting that. You could throw the ball to Cecina down there, see how he does. Baberovic has some height. Pierre, Nua, like they absolutely need to look at that early in the game, having someone other than their center's screen. And then if Panathinaikos responds with a switch, they need to go after it, whether it's direct post-entry pass or then one of Papagiannis, Motley, or Stanley is, flashing high and you're playing the high-low game. They had success with that against Panathinaikos a little bit. They eventually stopped switching and that kind of shut it down. But that was also the only offense Hayes-Davis could get in that game. His three was not falling. It may be something I think they should look at, especially early on, to see how Panathinaikos is responding defensively to those 1-4 pick and rolls, 1-3, 2-4 pick and rolls, etc.
Yeah, definitely gonna look for that. I think especially like you said early in the game, and it's one of also the main advantages of having Kalatis out there because he can find those mismatches. And I mean, it looks easy from the TV screen, but it's quite tough to throw that entry pass, especially when the defender is trying to front or there are so many arms around and it's a pressure situation. So they're gonna look for, I think. If like a gun to my head, I would guess that the starting lineup for the semifinal would be Hayes, Pierre, and Motley. I think Motley's going to start, so they're going to be looking for those mismatches. And Motley, it's basically his bread and butter. Like that's one thing he's good at. So he's going to attack those mismatches, and same for Pierre as well. But he's mainly a low post guy. It creates some spacing issues at times. Him being not a willing shooter and living inside the paint. But if they decide to switch, they're definitely going to try to find those mismatches in the paint, either get a score on them or just swing the ball out and find some open threes.
Yeah. Who do you think starts next to Kaletas in the backcourt? It doesn't matter. I mean, you may not care about who starts. Like Saras has done that plenty of times.
Like even if Dorsey starts, unless he goes crazy, like a couple of threes in the first quarter, then it's gonna be mostly Wilbekin who's playing the most of the minutes.
Yep.
But I would say towards the end of the Monaco series, if my mind is not playing a trick on me, I think Wilbekin was in the starting lineup. So I think it's gonna be Wilbekin again. Yeah.
I would guess Scotty, and then it probably like Marco and Tariq are some of the first guys off the bench alongside another big. Dorsey will get a run, as you've mentioned. Like Saras always gives him a burst to see if he brings something to the table shooting wise. Has one of those crazy hot streaks, but if he doesn't, he doesn't usually go back to him. I mean Panathinaikos, they're probably going to go Nunn, Grant, Grigonis, Dinos, and Lasort. And then like I think there's one, I think he should do it. Two, like I will not be surprised if he does. I think there's a good chance that especially if Dinos is not making shots early, Atman is going to go to small ball like as soon as he takes Dinos out of the game the first time. Like
another interesting thing is seeing that how Bonzi Colson forced Grigonis out of the rotation, basically like heavily reduced his minutes because he couldn't contain him at all. I'm really curious to see how Ataman is going to start the game, or who'll be playing the most at the small forward position for Cal. Yeah, because Pierre is not the scorer Coulson is probably, but
Mm-mm.
if he's on his day, he can do a lot of damage down there. And against a guy like Grigonis, he has a very good strength advantage in the low post. So
Yep.
even without any kind of mismatches, Frank can look for that if Grigonis is out there.
Yeah. Or you can go with Marco or Tariq there as well and see if Grigonis is up to the challenge too. On staying with one of those guys. Tariq's a little more catch and shoot, but certainly an option. I also, yeah, I mean, Grigonis got pushed out. Like, I think Kalitzakis is going to see good minutes in this game. Like,
Yeah, I think so too.
he proved himself in that Maccabi series that like he fits what they need, like around the star power that they have. He is like Grigonis is a more skilled player. I trust him more as a shooter, but like Kalitzakis brings the defensive intensity, and he was making big shots. Like he showed that if you leave me open for this, I'm not scared to shoot it, and I will knock it down. He's going to play a role in this one. Yeah, I mean, look, this game should be close. Like I think there's no denying that unless someone surprisingly gets hot. This should be a very close game. I think it's pretty close to a coin flip. I feel differently about the other semifinal where like I like Olympiacos. I know Bartzokas could have some tricks up his sleeve, but like Real Madrid should win that game. We can go to predictions unless you think there's something we didn't touch on in this matchup. Do you think there's anything we missed? Anything else that you're keeping an eye out on heading into this game?
Just a slight footnote. It's also going to be a Turkish derby in the sense that Fener against Ataman.
Yeah.
You can easily make a case for Ergin Ataman being Fener's main rival in the last 20 years. Not a club like an entity, but Ataman himself is Fenerbahce's biggest rival in the last 20 years in Turkish basketball, because Fener have been like a title contender level in the Turkish league and EuroLeague for a good part of the last 15 years.
Yeah.
And for most of it in the Turkish league, whoever was against Fenerbahce, like with some exceptions like Karşıyaka, who had Ufuk Sarıcı as their coach, or they played, I think, Telekom one year. Excluding teams like that, it was always Ataman, either with Beşiktaş, Galatasaray, or Efes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is going to be, and knowing that there's a lot of history between these two teams, and there are some players which switch sides. You'll have Karates and Papayannis playing against their ex-team, stuff like that. And Fener fans have absolutely no love for Ergin Ataman. So it's going to be interesting seeing that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, like I think a lot of us have taken joy in the making fun of Panathinaikos the last 12 years for not being able to make a Final Four, and at times being well below the level of a Final Four team. And they're back, so like they would love nothing more. And I think Fenerbahce fans have been at the top of that roasting at times, as they were one of the teams who ascended during this like Panathinaikos dry spell. So I think this will mean a lot to them if they can win this game. It will be kind of like a return to the old guard in a sense. I think to some of them, maybe I'm kind of making that up in my own mind, in my kind of like perception, having only followed EuroLeague for a handful of years, but I feel that is kind of how it could play out to them, and could be their view of it.
Yeah, I think that was always their goal.
Yeah.
After Obradovic left, and after some point, Yiannakopoulos just stopped caring and stopped spending money, then it was like for a couple seasons there, it was just a terrible team who had no business even competing for the playoffs. So now that they're back there and actually competing for stuff, it should be fun for Panathinaikos fans, and I would argue that it's actually good for the EuroLeague, even though Yiannakopoulos is, I mean, not a normal man, let's say.
Yeah. I follow him on Instagram, man. He's one of my favorite follows. I will admit it. You get an interesting look at some stuff following that guy on Instagram. All right. So what are your Final Four predictions? We didn't talk about Real Olympiacos, but I want to hear that from you as well. Who do you have winning the semis? Who do you have winning the final?
I mean, just like I didn't go against Fener in the playoffs, I'll go the same way in the semifinal. I think Fener, like, with a slight margin, just edges it. That's my feeling, but we'll see. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either way. It's going to be close, like you said.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be
And
more than a 2-possession game heading into the final 2 minutes, or like 6-point lead. That's the most separation I think there will be come to the final stretch.
yeah, maybe like one team goes up like 6-7 in the last 3-4 minutes, and then just wins it from there on. That's I think what could happen. But yeah, I agree. It's a very, very balanced matchup. For the other one, I have a feeling that actually Olympiacos will win the final.
Wow. Okay. All right.
But this is just a feeling of having watched the EuroLeague for 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and nothing else really. I mean, on the court, I think Real Madrid are a better team.
Yep.
But at moments this season, we saw that they might have a downfall. And just coming off of that ridiculous U shot from last year, some karma might be in play. So that's like just a hunch, really.
Yeah.
Nothing scientific.
Yeah. I'm talking to Seb again. I brought you both back. Your team's won in the playoffs. So you advanced to the Final Four. So I'll have Seb on again. And I mean, look, Olympiacos is healthy, like for the first time all year. Like they have pretty much all their guys. They have a lot of things they could throw at Real Madrid to try to hang with them. Like Real Madrid should win this game. I think they will. And like they are like a 70-30 favorite to me. But if Barzokas has everything at his disposal, like they can make it work. And I noticed some things this year that like Real has some weaknesses, the biggest one being like perimeter defense. There are some ways to make them work. And if you cut out transition offense, they can get a little stagnant as well. Look, they're a fantastic team. They should win the whole thing. My honest prediction right now is that we get Real and Panathinaikos in the final, and Real probably runs away with it. But I won't be surprised if this final goes either way. Pound Fener, I think it's a pure 50-50. I think Real should come through, and then we'll see from there. But that is my prediction, and I'll get into Real Madrid versus Olympiacos a little more later with Seb.
Seb told me he prefers Panathinaikos in the final against Olympiacos. So
really,
yeah, I told him be careful what you wish for.
Yeah,
so we'll see.
Yeah, I would. I think he's reading in a little. He's got some recency bias there, and feels a little too comfortable about how they've done against PAO this season in EuroLeague. But hey, I don't know. He watches them more than me. All right, Savas. I think we got to everything here. So thank you again for coming on. It was great to have you. Looking forward to connecting in Berlin at some point. And with that, what else you got to say? As I said at the top, I see you've got a new podcast running, so feel free to talk about that. And anything else on your mind before we head out?
Yeah, it was super nice to be back, especially going into the Final Four, where I managed to qualify for the first time in 5 years. And I'll see you in Berlin. We recently started a podcast with Sebastian Komianos, who you'll see in the preview for Olympiacos Real Madrid as well. And it's called Hoops and Baklava. You can find it on Spotify. I don't promise that we'll be committing 100% like Andrew is doing, but we'll try to be there, maybe going into the Final Four and after. So for the next season, who knows? It's just a platform for us to talk about our feelings or insights into the game. So
yeah,
if you tune in, if you subscribe, we appreciate it.
Definitely. Yeah, everyone should check it out. Savas, thanks again, and see you in a couple weeks. 2 weeks from today, they could be playing in the final, man. 2 weeks from today.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, man.
Thank you. All right. Welcome, everyone, here for this should probably be part 2, but part 2 of episode 5 of the Euroball podcast. I have brought back Sebastian Komianos, Olympiacos supporter. Similar to Savas, his team made it through to the Final Four, so he gets invited back. They win, he wins, and we all win because we get good content on the backside. We'll talk a little bit about the close to that Barcelona series, but then really mainly get into this semifinal, which was a rematch of last year's final between Real Madrid and Olympiacos. But before we get started on anything, Sebastian, how are you?
I'm very well. Thank you very much for having me again, and it's a pleasure to be here again. And I hope we bring similar luck to my team this time. Sorry to the rest of the guests, but it is what it is.
Yeah, That sounds right. That sounds right. Well, look, like I said, before we talk about the semifinal, let's talk about that playoff series. It was, Barcelona impressed me through the first three games. I was really blown away with their tenacity, with their intensity. I know it was a controversial call that got them the win in Greece, and I get the frustration with that, but they played a really great game. They executed and they battled. And I was coming out of game three and was like, wow, I underestimated these guys. They had more in them than I thought. Then they went down in game four. Papanikolaou was back and had a good game. They go down in game four. They just kind of rolled over and just let themselves get blown out in that game, which I can't understand in a best of five series. Like, I know it's tough to come back at PC Friendship. It's not easy, but like, you can't just kind of let the game and move on and say, oh yeah, we have game five at home. And then they came home and I mean, their offense was non-existent. And they kind of, they battled at the end, but they rolled over a few times in that game too. Parts of this series of this team impressed me, but I can be honest, I think something that stood out to me, look, I love Ricky Rubio. He's a great player. I loved watching him in the NBA. I don't know how impactful he still is, even at the EuroLeague level. He was, Grimau was giving him pretty healthy minutes. It seemed like those minutes cut into some Leprovitola minutes. He was also playing him alongside Satoransky or Jokubaitis, which is just like not an offensive backcourt. I mean, like none of those three guys are really ever looking to create their own shot. And I felt like there were some miscalculations in that series, and it felt at times like after they won game three, they were like, oh yeah, like we're gonna win one of these next two no matter what. And they didn't. I mean, they got outworked. And Olympiacos executed for those final two games and just kind of pushed them around however they wanted. What was your kind of takeaway? Did you learn anything about Olympiacos from that series or learn anything about Barcelona?
I mean, did I learn something or did I make sure about some things? I think I made sure about some things. And the first and most clear thing that I got sure about is that this team will put a fight. If they go down, they will go down fighting and swinging. I mean, Olympiacos. I'm talking about Olympiacos. Let's be honest here, and I'm speaking as an Olympiacos fan. It was an ugly series. It wasn't good basketball. It wasn't entertaining basketball. It was entertaining if you were a neutral and you really love the sport and you could see beauty in the ugliness as well. But if you're a casual neutral, or if you are either an Olympiacos or a Barcelona fan, this was ugly. And it was ugly for, let's say, in total 4 out of 5 games. So I think Olympiacos had a very good game 4, but the rest of the games were from ugly to to so-so. So I mean, overall, I think Olympiacos were the better side. And I say this firstly based on the fact that they won the 2 ugliest games that were game 1 and game 5. So I think they had this extra bit of, I don't know, was it experience? Was it know-how? Was it toughness? Was it, I don't know, like the will to make it more than these Barcelona guys? And I think overall they deserved it more. And I'm not going to talk that much about that call in game 4, because in reality they can happen. Like, I was furious when it happened, and I was talking to many friends about it, many friends supporting other teams as well. I was furious when it happened. But in reality, these calls happen. They can happen to you. They can happen against you. They can benefit you. But I think overall, the way this series ended was a fair result for Olympiacos to advance.
Yeah,
I had the impression that Barcelona was going to be more productive in offense. And probably I overlooked the fact that their guards are all the same kind of player, more or less. So they have 4 times the same guard. And I don't think Rubio was the problem. I think if something was clear as well, is that Rubio can be utilized in EuroLeague as a very crafty and very intelligent defensive player. He was a nightmare in game 5. At some point,
Yeah.
he was everywhere, deflecting balls, stealing, put his hands in the right places. So I don't think, like, even going forward, even for next season, I don't think Rubio is the first guy that you need to replace in this team. It's as you said, you need somebody that can create their own score, somebody that can slash more efficiently, somebody that can make shots from behind the line, but also from the mid-range.
Yep.
So they need more variety in their perimeter. And then I was very disappointed with Jabari Parker, to be honest. Willie and Vesely, I think more or less we knew what they can do and what they cannot do. They had their ups, they had their downs. But Jabari Parker, to say that these free throws that he made after that weird call in game 4, to say that these were the most important moments of his career, and to say that this is what I came to Europe for, this was very weird to me. Like, you can say this and then you can back it up with another 2 very good performances. But I think he was below par in the end. Like, Olympiacos fans, we complain a lot about Alec Peters' softness, for example, and we complain a lot about the fact that he can only make shots, and he's not that much of a threat in different areas. But then imagine having Jabari Parker, and imagine Jabari Parker going 0 from 7 in game 5. Yeah. And this is the thing, like, I'm going to finish because this was a monologue. And I'm going to make a full circle and say Jabari Parker didn't succeed in what Olympiacos succeeded. Olympiacos succeeded in finding the way to win even when the game got super ugly.
Yep.
And Jabari Parker, for example, didn't find a way to contribute when things got ugly.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. This has been Barcelona's like kind of personnel all season, right? I mean, we talked about before the series, a center rotation of Hernan Gomez and Vesely. When the game gets nasty, like, that's not the basketball they want to play. They want post-scoring opportunities. They want to be moving in the pick and roll. They want that stuff when it's, turns into this rebounding possession battle where you're scrapping and, like, as a big, I'm sure you feel like you're getting fouled on every possession, but the refs aren't going to call every foul. They just can't. Olympiacos has, like, when they're healthy, one, they have the depth, and 2, like, they have the bodies that are willing to do that. Mustafa Fall is willing to do that. I mean, Milutinov, that's his game. That's his bread and butter. That's the game he wants to play. Moses Wright is willing to fight down there too. Like, those are the guys they have, and Barcelona guys just moved away from it. I mean, yeah, they need to find, this summer they need to find a center who can play that way. They need to find someone who can protect the rim, rebound, and do some of the dirty work. And they have to figure out this, like you said, all these guards they have. My critique of Rubio, I mean, like, arguing about his ability to compete at the EuroLeague level is probably a little harsh, but it's just like Rubio, Jokubaitis, Satoransky. I mean, like, there's no need to have all 3 of those guys.
Exactly.
There's no need to have all 3 of those guys. Who knows? Maybe Jokubaitis goes to the NBA this year. Maybe that happens, and the Knicks finally sign him. They still have his rights. They could figure things out, but, like, they need to look at someone like a John Montero or something, who's had a really good season, another guy who can kind of fly around and create offense, and see how that works for them. Or, like, they need to just move on from one of these guards and play Brizuela more minutes. I mean, I was really surprised that Dario didn't get more of a run in that series, and I thought he should have, because he's had plenty of moments this season where, like, he's their best offensive guard. If Laprovitola doesn't have it, he's the guy who can come off the bench and give them a bit of a spark. So who knows? Maybe that changes next year. We'll see.
I think also they have a problem of identity, and they are stuck somewhere in the middle between being a defensive side and being a low-paced, controlling the pace kind of team, and being an offensive team that will just score more than you will. And I think they have to decide about their identity first. Like, they have to decide what brand of basketball they want to be playing going on. So let's see.
And who's their star? Like is Laprovitola who they're building around? And if so, what's the personnel, the other pieces they need to put around him?
I mean, I come from a team that clearly has no star, and it has been the topic of the offseason with Slukas departing, and like with Vezenkov departing, and Slukas complaining about the minutes he was getting last season, and the whole discussion about who the leader of this team is. There's no leader in this team. Like Zach McKissick made two super important threes, and he's clearly not the leader of this team.
Yep.
But then who is the leader? The leader is probably Barjokas, but even him, he leaves it to the players to decide what they want to do. So I'm not a supporter of the you have to have this go-to guy, certainly, otherwise you will fail. So but you clearly have to have an identity. You clearly have to have your brand of basketball that will lead you where it can lead you.
Yep. And
Barcelona is clearly not there. And to be honest, it was Grimau's first season. So like give him another season. What's the problem with that?
Yeah, for sure. Look, I'm impressed with the season they had. They lost game 5. It sucks how it ended, but this was better than I expected from them. With brand new rookie head coach, losing Nikola Mirotic, losing Corey Higgins, losing these guys, and still bouncing back and being 1 win away from going back to the Final Four. Like that's a solid run. I don't think you could ask for much else with the budget cuts, everything they went through. There's plenty of reason for optimism. It's just how it ended is what leaves that bad taste and kind of makes you have some more be a little more reflective and think more about what they need to do going forward. Looking up about Barcelona, as I said when I was talking to Savas about Monaco, their season's over. It's finished, so let's finish on them and move into the semifinal. We're going to have a rematch, Real Madrid Olympiacos. Olympiacos is going to try to get revenge after the Yule shot of last season. Let's kind of play this out a little bit. I'll say some things I think Real Madrid should do. I want to hear your response to them and some things Olympiacos should do. My kind of first thing here for Real Madrid offensively, Real will get up early in games. They will put up points on the board from the jump, pull away, and then kind of like force you in this position where you are battling back and trying to get back into the game, which is very difficult to do with all the talent they have. The main way they usually do this is transition. And like Real Madrid's transition offense, it's the best in Europe because they have so much talent, and Campazzo can really push the floor, and Musa is great in transition, and Hezonja is great in transition. And they are one of those teams who, how good they are, how talented they are. So when they start getting those transition points, they will often pressure their opponents and make them feel like they need to start playing fast. Like they'll score a quick 2 at one end, and the opponent is like, we got to get down, and like we need a quick 2 now, oh my God. And then they take a bad shot, and then Real Madrid gets a long rebound, and they get another transition opportunity, and then they hit a transition 3, and the team is like, okay, yeah, now we need a transition 3, and it cycles, and before you know it, like they went on a 10-0 run, and you got to call timeout and try to control it. So that's the first thing I'm looking at for Real Madrid. Can we get out and run early? And Olympiacos, what do you see from them? Do you think they're gonna kind of give up offensive rebounding, maybe just have Fall stay down there? Because they got burned on some transition last time they played, in Madrid. Olympiacos had a lot of injuries, to be clear, in that game. They were nowhere near a healthy roster. But last time they played, like Real got out to a lead early, and it was because of this. They started transition, and they got their easy points early and were able to hold the lead the rest of the way.
Man, I mean, you've covered so many things already that are parts of the narrative and part of this Real Madrid versus Olympiacos game. First of all, if there is a team that is not going to bite with this whole transition style, it's Olympiacos. I mean, the times that we're swearing at Thomas Walkup carrying the ball to half court, not even walking, like going slower than walking. It's like he's pushing himself to walk super slowly. And the number of times we've sworn at him are insane. So I think we're not going to have a problem with that. We're not going, and we don't even have the players to do that. Maybe Isaiah Canaan can shoot the odd transition 3, or I don't know, McKissick maybe. But other than these two, there's nobody that is not able, but even willing to do that. And then you mentioned Real Madrid getting the lead, going up with a big point difference, and then the other team having to fight back. Olympiacos did that in the second game. I think I don't remember exactly the difference, but it was close to 20 points. It was
it's 52-30 at halftime, I think.
Yeah. So, and they lost in the end
by 4, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So 2 possessions. So if there's one team again that can fight back, I believe it's this Olympiacos team. Yeah. And then the other thing, man, injuries for this Olympiacos side, for this version of Bernucca's team, it has been the story of the season so far, because we're just never at our whole, like there's always at least 1 or 2 guys that are missing, that are absent. And for example, we talked about it. Milutinov was not even at his 100% fitness levels for this playoff series.
Yep.
Papanikolaou similarly, Petrusev the same. Walkup had back problems. So this is another question to be answered. Like Petrusev had a slight injury today in the Greek League game, and we're waiting on the status of that. So in the end, I think this will play a big role for how the game is going to be played. But I do believe that Olympiacos will try to slow the game down. And it's actually funny because one of the reasons that this team, like in hindsight, of course, one of the reasons that this team lost last season's final was the fact that some of the players tried to finish the game much earlier than it actually finishes, So there were 3 or 4 or 5 very bad decisions offensively. Early shots, like one-on-one attempts without passing the ball around. So I think this season the team is lacking in offensive talent, but at the same time it has acquired the knowledge that they lack this offensive talent, and they're trying to compensate about that by slowing the tempo down and by trying to be more, how can I say it, more patient, but also by trying to kill the rhythm of the opponent, like to kill the vibes, if I can say, if I can put it like that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I wouldn't be worried even if Real Madrid is up by 15 or whatever. Like this Olympiacos side is going to be. I think even as a neutral, if you have a team that is down by 15, you want that team to be Olympiacos for the game to still be a challenge.
Yeah. Who do you think guards Campazzo to start the game? Do you think it's Papanikolaou? Because I know Barzokas has gone that route against some of the pick and roll guards so that the switch is better. So that when he goes to the switch, it's Papanikolaou going to the post. But I got to be honest about it, I remember watching that second time they played this year. Barzokas did leave switching a little bit. He was finally like, maybe not so much. Tavares wasn't even healthy. And I just think like, I get the love. Tavares is a different beast to switch against. Like that's not even Matthias Lasort down there. Like if you put the wrong guy, like Tavares just catches the ball and turns around and flips it in the hoop.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to be just one guy. I think there's going to be a lot of different attempts at slowing Facu down, and I can see many players actually going at him. I can even see Isaiah Kanan going at him. I can see Zach McKissick going at him. I can see Pap, Thomas Walkup, of course. So I think throughout the game, and I think basketball-wise, this is a very interesting game. Like coaching-wise as well. There's so many things to be looking at.
Yeah, both teams have so much depth. I mean, there's so many different ways they can play. That's what's going to be really interesting to see. Yeah,
even with Deck not being there, unfortunately, due to his injury, I think these teams are very wealthy in terms of options. And I think it's games like that where you can actually gamble, a little bit, and you can say, okay, I will gamble for 2 or 3 minutes with this guy having this role. Unfortunately for Olympiacos, the depth right now doesn't seem to be fully functioning because Sigma, for example, is a non-factor.
Yeah.
Larenzakis looks like...
This is the worst he's played.
Yeah, unfortunately, Larenzakis. I think Larenzakis is below his before Olympiacos levels even.
Yeah.
I think this is one of his career lows. Fortunately, he can still make his clutch free throws, cold-blooded. Brasdeikis, as we talked about the last time, I think it was obvious for you that he's not a factor anymore either.
Yeah, he's not going to play in this game.
Yeah, you have these 3 guys more or less out. But then I think if Petrusev is healthy, if Milutinov is healthy, if Walkup and Papanikolaou are healthy, I think this is going to be a hell of a semi-final. And as much as I would like EuroLeague to eventually transition into a series for their title crowning events, I think it's about time. I think this regular season showed how close every team is to each other. And I think it's time that we go from single game Final Fours to actual playoffs series. So as much as I would like that to happen, these one-off games also have their charm. So
yeah,
I think it's going to be very interesting. One thing I'm looking really forward to, and this is wishful thinking here, obviously, and this is thinking with fingers crossed. I really hope we can have these 10 to 15. Well, it's actually less than 15. Like I really hope that we can have this 1 full week to 10 days with the team being healthy, having their training sessions together, being able to work together, and I really hope that Bartzokas can present a full lineup with his players in this semi-final, because I'm really looking forward to what he's going to employ against this Real Madrid team.
Yeah, I agree. Look, I think Real Madrid needs to shorten their rotation. Matteo.
Do you think it's happening? Because this is for example, this is another interesting conversation. Are they going to shorten the rotation? Because Olympiacos is clearly with a short rotation, as deep as their roster is right now.
Yeah, they should, man. Look, Chus Mateo's great. He won Coach of the Year today. Fantastic. Good for him. He deserves it. But they.
Oded Katas, I said it. I have to say it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, he has a case too, for sure. No doubt.
Yeah. I mean, be creative, guys. Come on. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're fine. But I mean, if I'm them, their starting lineup is probably, Facu Abalde, Hazonia. Is Yabusele healthy? I think he's healthy, right?
He's healthy, yeah.
Yabusele, Tavares. The bench is looking like, Musa, Yul, Poirier. And then you have to figure no deck, who's the other wing you play? They probably go to Koser, if I had to guess. And he usually does pretty well in the Final Four, but that should really be it. Like if Sergio Rodriguez comes into the game, man, I know Bartzokas isn't crazy about hunting out one guy.
Yeah.
If Sergio Rodriguez comes into the game, just start putting him into every action possible and get him off the court. You cannot let that guy hide on someone, you can't you can't play Sigma, because if you play Sigma, then Mateo can put Chacho in the game and be just guard Sigma. It's fine. They're not going to throw him the ball, and then Chacho can do his thing on the other end and get involved in pick and roll. These are the chess pieces, and just you cannot let him get away with hiding Rodriguez on one end of the floor. And I think interestingly, I was talking at the beginning, I asked about the Facu matchup because I'm curious to see if they stay with switching. I think if they switch early, especially Tavares pick and rolls, they're probably Real really needs to try to get Tavares the ball if Olympiacos is switching. They really need to see what that looks like and if he can punish them. Because if switching is working, Olympiacos could get Real Madrid into the worst version of themselves, which is Real will start playing hero ball. If their offense stagnates, like Hazonia and Musa will all be like, yeah, just get like, I'm just going to take my guy off the dribble. Just give me the ball. I'll just go get us a bucket. Which like they can do sometimes, but it's not when they're at their best. They're at their best when like Facu's running pick and roll and they got the ball zipping around and you don't know who's guarding who anymore. And they've got 4 or 5 super talented guys out there who one of them is left open and can, get to the rim or shoot an open 3, which is just the last thing you want. So like, that's what like Ollie should start with the switching, Bartzokas, they should switch. And if that works, like Real needs to kind of protect themselves and not get caught up in that. The other main thing that we have to talk about, we know it's going to happen. We talked about it for the playoffs. Like, Thomas Walkup. They're gonna go under. They're gonna leave him. They're gonna help off him. When they last played, like Walkup's response was to shoot a few more threes, and they weren't going down. Like, I think that's phase 1. Like, that's the first thing he tries if they're leaving him open and going under on screens. He's just got to let it fly and see if he has a good day. See if he has one of those 5 of 10 from 3 days, which like he is capable of. He doesn't do it often, but he can. But if that's not working, here's something I've always wanted to see. Him and Calathes, like 2 guys who this happens to all the time. But if you see your defender go under the screen and the big fall into drop, like 2 defenders pretty much sink into the paint against you, like go into a dribble handoff right away. Reject the screen, like drive to the wing and like look for Papanikolaou, McKissick, or Kanan and try to punish those sinking defenders. Like that needs to be the next step. I don't know if there's something I'm missing on that. Like, I'm not a coach. I'm not Georgios Bartzokas.
Yeah.
I'm not Sarunas Jasikevičius. Like, so I don't know what I'm like missing there, but I'm never like, they know it's coming. And it's so often that we're just like, oh, we're just going to see if he makes shots. I don't know. What do you want them to try when this happens this year? Because it killed you last year. It was the zone less so and leaving him open in the zone, but you know what I mean? Like leaving.
I mean, so many,
open...
again, like, this is like an open wound and like you're throwing salt into it right now. Was this what killed Olympiacos last year? Or like, because I still have nightmares about this Mustafa Fall, hook from the free throw line. Like, what are you doing there? Or like Slukas, trying to seal it, or like Sasa Vezenkov trying to seal it. Sasa, out of these 3, Sasa was the most rightful to try to do so because he had an incredible performance.
Yep.
But I mean, it's so many different things that didn't go well and didn't go towards Olympiacos, and at the same time, a couple of things that went towards Real Madrid side. For example, Tsatso's 3-pointer could have very well went out of the rim, or Yule's buzzer beater against Fall. Like what a high arcing shot that was. So I don't think it was just Thomas Walkup missing his shots. Or for example, one could argue that Isaiah Kanan was hot. He should have been given the ball more. He should have attempted more field goals. So I don't think it was just Thomas Walkup or just Slukas or just Mustafa Fall or just him or the other guy. I think it was, the compilation of all these things together. If you ask me what I would honestly like Thomas Walkup to do more when they dropped him, is have him attack the basket, like have him try to slash the basket.
Yeah.
And I say that because I hear what you're saying about dribble handoffs, but how many Olympiacos players can you name that are very efficient after the handoff as shooters?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's like,
is it
like McKissick is like probably the one guy, who you really trust.
But he can only slash, right?
Yep.
So you only trust him when he slashes. Kanan can attempt the 3-point, but he's not such a good slasher.
Yep.
And then Alec Peters maybe is the other guy that can attempt a 3. But then again, these are just 3 guys. Papanikolaou, for example, is not a handoff kind of offensive player, and then that's it, pretty much. So, do you trust? Like, let's say, do you trust these players with half of Thomas Walkup's attempts against the drop defense?
Yeah.
Or do you trust Thomas Walkup to make 2 out of 6 3-point shots that he's going to take in such situations. And again, like this is a funny thing that I need to say, because okay, we all have all these podcasts and we discuss basketball and like we all share and exchange ideas and thoughts. But in the end, these games are decided by a couple or a few possessions in the end. It's not like they're decided by 10, 15, 20 points, and we're talking about something that went massively wrong for the losing side.
Yeah.
Fenerbahce is in the Final Four with back-to-back Nick Kalathis 3-pointers.
Yeah.
Who would have thought that?
Yeah.
Not even the most optimist Fenerbahce fan.
Yeah, not me and not Savas, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Not me, not anybody. Olympiacos is in the Final Four because Zach McKissick made 2 3-pointers, 2 very big 3-pointers. And although he's not as bad as a 3-point shooter as Kalathis is, he's not the guy that you want to have two very big open shots, from your team. So in the end, it's just a couple of possessions that are going to decide that. And when you judge that, are you really going to say that Thomas Walkup shouldn't, like, that he doesn't have the right to attempt more than 3 or 4 3-pointers? I was very furious at him and it was actually funny because the fourth 3-pointer that he attempted against Barcelona was the one that he made.
Yep.
And like the moment I saw him starting his shooting motion, I got up from the couch and I started swearing at him. And like my father, which is not a very passionate basketball fan, he's more of a football, of a soccer guy.
Yeah.
He was like, calm down. This is the game now. Like this is what the game has come down to. He has to attempt these shots, because otherwise, what do? Do you risk with the ball stalling in your hands? So, and it went in, I started swearing at him and he made it, and then I shut my mouth, and so it went in. So maybe maybe last season his shots didn't go in, maybe this season they go in. I don't think Bartzokas is going to spend these last 10 days of the EuroLeague season trying to teach Thomas Walkup, like trying to improve him as a 3-point shooter. And I don't think that he's trying that he's going to try to contain him and dictate a different playing style for him. So
yeah, it's a make or miss league, right? I mean, like that's it. It's just like, the basketball at this high level, like teams are going to execute a scheme that makes you do things you don't want to do, but like the players are good enough to succeed at things they're not good at. And like, that's what's going to happen. Olympiacos are going to get put in this scenario. I mean, Papanikolaou and McKissick are going to be like, I don't think it was obvious during the regular season how important like getting offense from the 3 spot is for Olympiacos. Just because like, in regular season and so many different matchups, like you can find offense in different ways. Nigel Williams-Goss can come off the bench and contribute. Peters can get hot. Kanan can get hot. Your bigs can, get a lot of points into the pick and roll. Walkup can make more threes than usual. But in like, in a one-off game like this or in a playoff series, teams start scheming so well and they're so prepared and so ready that the stuff that you kind of cycle through in just a regular season game, it goes away. They're going to take that stuff away. And what's going to happen is, Thomas Walkup's going to end up with threes, or like Papanikolaou has to run a pick and roll, or like Shaq McKissick has to break a guy down off the dribble. And to their credit, both those guys stepped up. Like Papanikolaou was big in game 4 and game 5. McKissick hit the huge shots, and they're going to need that again against Real Madrid. Like one of those 3, Walkup, Papanikolaou, or McKissick, and honestly, probably 2 of those 3 are going to need to have like a positive offensive game. They're going to need to make an impact and make plays. And the way they do that, I like that you brought up the walk-up drives, because I have hit this all season. This Real Madrid team does not have a lot of weaknesses. One of them is their perimeter defense, particularly like closeouts when the ball starts moving around. They do not have guys who are quick on their feet. Like Campazzo is, but he's small. And like Alberto Obalde is their best perimeter defender.
Yeah,
like depending on how you look at Yabusele, like Yabusele is a good perimeter defender, but he usually ends up down low.
Yeah.
Like Obalde is their best perimeter guy, and then like Fabian Kosor is like their next stopper. So like that's not a good position to be in. And so Olympiacos, like they need to, when they get into that Bartzokas ball stuff, like Papanikolaou and McKissick they're going to get the ball and be ready and given chances to slash, and like they need to score or make the right pass. Like that's going to be Olympiacos' offense in this game, and how they can like make things difficult for Real on that end of the floor. Because like that's the weakness. That's what you have to exploit against this team. It's really the only consistent thing, or you get Tavares in foul trouble. Like those are the two options.
In my opinion, they have to score. Do not pass it. Just attack the rim. And what you said about the small forward position being vital for Olympiacos, it's a very important position because the way this roster is constructed, these are the only two players that can threaten from behind the arc and by attacking the rim. So there's no other slasher. Maybe with the exception of Nigel Williams-Goss, that can slash. And that's why I brought up Walkup's drives.
Yeah.
Because I think he's a decent, like, all things considered, for this Olympiacos team, that is. He's a decent slasher.
Yeah.
And I think his mid-range shot is quite okay. So I would like him to play more the way Nigel is playing, the way Williams-Goss is playing. So if they drop, try to attack the rim.
Yeah.
And like try to force. You're strong enough to play defense. So I do believe that you're strong enough to absorb the contact on offense and try to make a shot. And then if Milutinov, for example, is in the lineup, you can always be optimistic that he can grab the offensive rebound.
Yep.
So, or that with some sort of weird defensive rotation, somebody is going to have a mismatch, grab the rebound and attack instantly.
Yeah. I don't want you guys chasing offensive rebounds, by the way. Don't chase offensive rebounds against Real Madrid.
We're not going to chase them, but look at how important Milutinov's offensive rebounding
was. Yeah, let him fall and right. Like they should go, and like the other four guys got to get back. Like they can attack for an offensive rebound. The other four guys got to get back. Like those Doc Rivers Boston Celtics teams, man. It was like KG can go for an offensive rebound, and everyone else gets back on defense.
I agree. I can see Petrusev succeeding in some offensive.
Yeah, probably, especially if Real plays smaller. Yeah.
And that's why I really want him to be healthy, because Fall looks like he's a bit out of form currently. Like he doesn't look like he's at his best. So I really want to see Milutinov and Petrusev more in the court, especially when they are together. Yeah.
Look, man, it should be a good game. Like I told Savas this earlier, and I'll reveal it. Like Real Madrid should win this game. They should. This is an incredibly talented team. They are a better team. Like they're well coached. They have everything they need. They should win this game, and they should win the championship. Like no questions asked. I don't want to say like no questions asked. Like they should get pushed a little bit, but like this is a historically great team, and they should walk on to the title and go back to back. I have, like they're 70-30 in this game to me. And I told Savas my prediction earlier is a Real Madrid Panathinaikos final, and Real Madrid goes on and wins the whole thing. But also, like, we know the curse, right? The best regular season team never wins the championship. And if there's a team that can like make this ugly and make it uncomfortable and just like grind out a victory, it's this Bartzokas Olympiacos team if they're healthy enough, because he's just gonna have so many things he can throw at them. Like if Tavares gets 2 post buckets in a row, he's just like, okay, I'll just like start changing up what bigs I have guarding you, and we'll get physical, and that's gonna go away. Oh, Campazzo's rolling in the pick and roll. Yeah, we'll put walk up on him now, and we'll put Papanikolaou on him, and we'll help on that. Hezonia's getting going. Okay, great. Like, I have options there. I can go to McKissick to defend him. I can move Papanikolaou off Campazzo now. Like he's got all these different pieces he can move around. And he will, and we'll see how Mateo and Real Madrid responds. So I expect it to be close. I just think Real Madrid should win and go on to win the championship. But what is your final prediction? Who are you picking in this one?
I mean, I'm not going to pick anyone.
You're not
else.
picking.
No, I will pick, but I cannot go against Olympiacos, man. I simply cannot go. Like I lose my supporting rights if I go.
If you say otherwise, that's true.
We started this podcast. You asked me, have you learned anything? and I said, you know, I haven't learned, but it's clear that this team is fighting. It's clear that this team will fight. And I want to say this thing, like Real Madrid, obviously very worthy of their number one spot in the regular season standings, but it wasn't like they cruised throughout the whole season.
Yeah,
they won a couple or a few games even, decided by details in the end, and they had games in which they were lucky, and also they faced teams that were not in their best, like roster wise and injuries wise. So it's not like they're completely unbeatable, you know. Like teams have demonstrated throughout the whole season that they're a very human team after all. So I do see it as a 65-35 in favor of Real Madrid, but I am still predicting the 35% to be the winning side in the end.
Will you make a pick on the other side?
No.
Yeah, because
no.
you can't.
Leave me out of this. Leave me out of this. I don't want anything to do with this. Like, nothing.
But you should just say Fenerbahce, right? Because you want
No. I'm not doing anything. Like, I don't even want to know what the other semifinal is. Like, which the other two teams are. Like, I'm going to pretend I have no idea. Let's talk on Sunday morning if you want, or Monday morning even, after this whole thing is concluded.
That sounds good. So
because I will. Like, we're laughing. So for the uninitiated, I don't know if anyone in the US or outside of Greece or the wider Balkans region can understand what an all Greek final in the EuroLeague is going. I don't think, like, it's not even like you're going to have Real Madrid versus Barcelona, because these brands are huge and they're very successful in football even. Like, they're probably two of the best 10 teams in football as well. So it's completely different, man. It's completely different. Like, Olympiacos and Panathinaikos have met in Final Fours before, but never in the final, always in the semifinals.
Yeah.
It's 2-1 in favor of Olympiacos. But if this happens in the final, it's going to be a game that will be talked for, I don't know, like 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
So
as the neutral, that's what I'm rooting for, to be clear. Like, my prediction is Real Madrid Panathinaikos as like a neutral, and like, you know, especially if I'm covering the games in person, like I want an Olympiacos Panathinaikos final. Like, there's nothing better than that. It's going to be one of the greatest spectacles in sport, you know, in terms of atmosphere, intensity, and, you know, the vitriol both sides like feel for each other. There will be nothing like it. There is nothing like it in American sports. You know, college sports.
I mean, the closest, college is probably the closest you can get, and you can probably pick one of these super ancient college rivalries, and if you multiply this by 1,000, maybe you get close to what this Greek rivalry is all about. And because remember, this is the Balkans also. Like, we're not how can I say? We're not very calm over here. So it's going to be something.
Yeah.
But it's Real Madrid right now, so I don't want to be focusing on potential and possible scenarios from the other side of the
Agreed. Look, I think you guys are going to give them a push no matter what. I think Real should have the offense to get through, especially just because crunch time, they have more guys to go to. I think that's going to be an issue. But look, if the right guys step up, you walk up McKissick and Papanikolaou, those are the three. Like, two of those guys need to have a good game. If two of those guys have a good game, this is going to be very interesting. If they don't, like, Real probably moves on. But all right, Seb, that is all I got. Thank you again for coming on. It was great to have you back. Hopefully we have you on for a recap after you win the championship.
It will be a great pleasure. Yeah.
That can be your third episode.
Absolutely.
But before we sign off here, what else are you up to? Anything else to promote? I talked with Savas earlier about the new podcast, Baklava Hoops.
Yeah,
what's going on?
We've been trying to set something up. We have been trying for a whole season, and maybe even more than that. Let's see how it goes. Like, we've been trying to push each other into making it a more regular thing, and baklava is a very very delicious, I'll say Mediterranean
Yeah.
delicacy. So it's very nice. Everyone should try it out whenever they are in either Turkey or Greece. And let's see how it goes. I'm Seb from the court in Twitter if anybody wants to make fun of my thoughts, predictions, and opinions. And again, I hope we talk on Monday after the Final Four.
That's right. That's right. So
Thanks again
thank
for
you so
having me.
much. Thanks
Thank you
everyone.
for having me.
And 2 weeks from now, hopefully Olympiacos is champions. 2 weeks from now, the season will be over.